Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to my channel, Exhibition Cadet Sabar Shah for Exhibition Cadet 9936 channel. So basically, I will talk about the interview in which Pierce Morgan, he invited three of the panelists and talked about the flight Air India 171. And I have done previously a video on Pierce Morgan's show about when he invited Hina Ravani Kar and Pakistan's ex-foreign minister, and then along with them he invited Barkadat, a journalist, that has no idea about the foreign policies or anything, and another joker, a clown. So the panel was not balanced at that time, and this time too, the same thing happened. He has invited one of the most renowned people in aviation industry, and with the Air Force background, working at Boeing, and one of them is working with the EM or EW waves, and full of experience. I mean, and they were so modest by saying that we are not experienced, we are not experts in blah 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 field. But on the other hand, he invited Captain Steve, the TikToker, one of the biggest idiots in on YouTube, I would say, declare, and I will give you the reasons. So it was not balanced. Steve couldn't even talk. He was like speaking gibberish. I'm really surprised that he claims that he's a pilot on some airlines. I don't believe the person has no knowledge about. He doesn't have the basic aviation knowledge even. So anyhow, and again, I mean, he just tries to wears the uniform and comes out as an expert, and his words have shown that he has no bloody idea about aviation at all. So let me go through point by point why I'd say that he was not eligible to be on the panel even. His first theory came when the Air India crash happened, and Mr. Aviational Expert said that because the flaps were raised up, the plane lost the
Here's
lift.
why. I think the pilot flying said to the co-pilot, gear up at the appropriate time. I think the co-pilot grabbed the flap handle and raised the flaps instead of the gear. If that...
And I was like, what? Are you serious, man? Because, I mean, speechless. Flaps could make the engine go down, make the plane, Boeing 787-8, that's one of the most amazing machines in the aviation history, would go down because flaps were raised up. First, in the same video, actually, he came up with a theory that maybe the pilots did not got the flaps down.
That's my theory. Now, I could be completely wrong about this, but the flight characteristics look to me to be an airplane that doesn't have enough lift coming over the wings. And the only way that could happen is if they didn't have the proper flap setting. So however they got to an
So that also doesn't take an aircraft down. And the system warnings, they would, get these pilots, ding, 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 just like a beatbox. So that could never happen in any aviation history, that a person forgot to get the flaps down and try to do a takeoff. The aircraft systems won't allow that. The third one, in which he said, now what happened, the background of this one was when he said this theory, actually a lot of people in India picked it up. So people started sharing his video, and he got almost 12 million views on that video, which is like more than his 10-year salary. Yeah, YouTube pays a lot for, especially American, if you're based in America, you get a little bit more payment, like I think probably 30 cents per view. Yeah, so imagine altogether on Air India flight, he has gotten calculated almost 30 million views. So you can well imagine that he's almost $250,000 million he has earned from Indian people, and yet he has the audacity to speak against the
It's very sad. I feel so sorry for these pilots. I think they tried valiantly to save this airplane, but this may have been simply a tragic mistake.
In the video I will show you later, where Mr. Kishore Chinta, where he tackled him nicely, and after that he just went down like the foam on the bathtub. He just told him that, Mister, you are bound by the oath, by the civil aviation law, and you cannot make a judgment on a subsidious case, the case which is under which is being discussed, being investigated. You cannot talk. Any journalist can talk. Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can talk like me. But people who are working for the airliners as pilots, they are not supposed to talk about. They're not supposed to give out their verdicts. And you are calling a fellow pilot mental case without any evidence.
With the ICAO Annexure 13, nobody, it's a legal document for everyone in aviation. I mean, with due respect to Steve, the mere fact that we're discussing possibilities to a matter which is sub judice, we could be legally tried actually by the International Civil Aviation Organization as per the Annexure 13. No matter with respect to an investigation is to be discussed. As a media person, as a journalist, you're more than welcome. It's your investigative journalism which is you're more than welcome to speculate. But as aviators, as signatories to the ICAO, we are duty bound. We cannot be just throwing around theories without substance.
The next day, he came up with another video, which was the rat deployment, and then he came up with another theory. And mark my words, the thing he's talking at the moment, he himself had denied that back then.
I think anybody that suggests that's kind of a kooky theory. I'm just simply explaining it as one of the possible ways that fuel could be starved to an engine. I'm not saying that happened, and we're going to take that now and we're going to put it in the dustbin of history, and we're not going to come back to that. The other
He said very clearly, he said that dual engine failure can only happen on the Boeing 787 once the fuel is starved, once the fuel supply to the engine is starved, is cut off. And that could only be done by the pilots. And he himself said that we are going to put this one in the dustbin of the history, and we will never talk about that again, because he was so much scolded by everyone that his apologetic behavior. He was so apologetic at that time. You could see through his face as well. Oh, we're not going to talk about it. We're going to throw it in the... These are his own words. He shouldn't be talking about that unless he apologizes to all the people who back then subscribed him and gave him almost 30 million views, that he has no idea about anything. So he's right that fuel is the dual engine failure at this level. The most prominent reason is cutting the fuel supply. Now, who cut that fuel supply? We'll talk about that later. And then number 4, why he shouldn't be on the panel, is he was in another video. He was trying to show that how these fuel switches work.
In order for the pilot to do it, they got to pull it out, place it in, and then it clicks into place, and it stays in that position. That's why you couldn't bump it and knock it out. You could grab it and pull it. You have to pull it out.
You see, what I'm saying is that he had no idea about fuel switches. If you look at his first video, when he was being apologetic and saying that fuels are cut off, his hand actions would tell you that he goes like this, and these fuel switches are not.
We take the fuel control levers and we take them from run and we put them to shut off. That's one of the ways that you can starve an engine of fuel.
They don't go up and down. You have to hold them back and take them up, and then leave it. Again, pull them back, get them down, and leave it. So your action, once you were describing about the fuel switches, it's automatic. It's like back of your mind. Right away, you would perform the same actions. See? Like this. But he went like this. Now, you can't say that, he was trying to make the layman understand. Nope. No, he has no experience. Why? Oh, I forgot to turn off or close the window. It's okay. So what he did, he was showing that how these fuel switches work. And then he gave the example of those fuel switches, telling people that these are Boeing 787-8 switches. They were Airbus switches. This person even doesn't know about the Airbus switches, because the Airbus has put engine 1 and engine 2 swear kind of thingy on that. I checked it on many of the Airbus videos. So he showed those ones. Imagine that. I mean, and this person is called expert by Pierce Morgan. Now, so the second panelist, Ed Pierson, they called him a whistleblower, and he has been working in Boeing company. And normally what happens is how these softwares work. When I was in my first year, when I was doing my computer engineering here in China, in my first year, my project was to make in GW Basic. That was the language back then, the computer language we used. And they said that make a program for the elevator to function. Like you had to, when the end users, like people, we go in, we push the button, door opens, we get in, we push the destination button in, door closes, the elevator goes to that destination floor, and then the door opens, you get out, and the door closes. So it seems like a pretty easy thing, right? But the computer program written behind that is very complex. And I was told to make only one story lift. It means that you push the button, the door opens, you get in, the door closes, and once you push the button again, the door opens, you get out, and the door closes. So how many if statements were used over here? So if the button is pushed, then the door opens. So if the door opens after 5 seconds, then the door closes by itself. If the third logic, if the button is pushed inside, the door opens right away. And once someone is out or whatever, and the door closes by itself after 5 seconds. So 4 logics are only on one story. Now imagine going to making a program about the 2 stories. Then there will be more logics that now the button number 2 has been pushed, so the lift would not only close the door, but always also start to move upwards. So that's the software part. So once the software is done, then we use the assembly language and we connect it to the real elevator. And that's how this software controls the whole mechanical elevator. And you don't need any physical
The
interaction.
only answer that really fits all of the parameters are that the field control switches, as they say in the report, transitioned from run to cutoff. That doesn't happen without human intervention. And anybody that operates those switches knows that. They are spring loaded into position. They have a detent to hold them there. They don't vibrate out of position. That's never happened. There's no evidence that that took place at all. We're thinking of some sort of theory.
Why I'm saying this, let me give you another example of iRobots, the movie you saw, in which there were 3 laws of the robotics, and yet one of the robots found a discrepancy in the logic, and he started killing the people because he thought these are the AI-based, artificial intelligence-based robots. Although it's a movie, but that's what I want to say. That's how the computer systems work. That's how the logic works. And sometimes when there's so many logics, once they have a contradiction with each other, the artificial intelligence-based modules, they can create their own outcome once there is a contradiction, because human mind can't think of the contradiction for their logics. Suppose if I say, let's say if I push 1, the room is going to turn dark. Okay, if I push 2, the room is going to turn bright. Okay, but what if logic 1, if I push 1 and the room gets darker, right? But if I write the program under switch 2 as well, that you are going to turn it brighter. So artificial intelligence-based computers would try to see that, these 2 are doing the same action, so why I am given these 2 different things for the same action. So it would cut out one of them. I mean, he would not listen to one of them because the end result is the same. So once you are pushing 1, the room is going to get darker, but once you push 2, it's going to stay darker. Or the computer system could think that probably the code written is wrong and it wanted the room to be brighter. Artificial intelligence-based computer modules, this could happen. It could turn the events totally the other way. So these computer systems, like the Windows operating system, like the Macintosh, like the Apple, like Android, right, like Xiaomi, like Huawei, all these computer systems are artificial intelligence based, and they can think. That's what I can say. People won't believe it, but yeah, this is what the computer modules do. So here, the software system on the aircraft that judges people's actions too. So if the computer-based if a manual input in the air to cut off the fuel switches, the computer would never allow that unless there are other warnings, unless there's an engine fire, unless there's a hydraulic failure, unless there's an electrical failure. The warning lights are... So if people manually turn it off, it's not going to do it. The computer would never allow that in the air. People can try. I mean, not with the passengers at the back, but those who fly 787, because this is the thing which you even don't practice only in the sims, in your simulators, but not in real. But this computer system, the FIDEC, is not gonna, because it's against the will, against the nature, against the natural laws. Then why would you cut off the fuel switches at the time of takeoff? No, the computer won't. It's gonna bypass, because it has done that in the same report once. Because you see, once the pilot was going down, definitely he said embrace for impact. His main thing was to cut the supply of the fuel into the engine so that on impact, the engines don't explode. But eventually, that's not a solution, but throttles were put to the idle condition. But if you see the report says that the FADEC or the EAFR data shows they were never brought back to idle. So how did these fuel switches go back? These throttles got to idle and aft, both of them, not one. Both of them were at that position. So it should be like 5%. If it's because of the impact, should be at one should be at 5%, one should be at 15%, or the other way around. It can't be idle aft position. Applying, the pilots did it, and just to after once they were going down, but FADEC did not accept that command, and the EAFR data says that the engines were at full thrust, TOGA, toga. So take off and go around. So now, computer would not allow you to do that. So Ed Pierson was trying to say the same thing. He had been working on a Boeing company by himself. And the third panelist is Mr. Kishore Chinta. Mr. Kishore Chinta is an ex-Air Force officer, and he had been working on electromagnetic waves, EMs, and all these kind of things. So he knows that how they interfere, of course, during, even not during the war, how do they electronically control the other aircrafts. And he gave out a lot of examples of F-35 recently, which lost control. FADEC just lost the control, and when pilot couldn't even handle the aircraft, and it went into the ground. And he gave examples of Mirage 2000s. A lot of military aircrafts did, where the FADEC actually refused the pilot's command. For example, in Japan Airlines, the November Hotel 981, that flight from Osaka, what happened there? The fuel switches, the FADEC cut off the valves because FADEC thought that the reverse thrust command is not to be given on the ground. He thought he was in ground mode, so once the reverse thrust command was given, FADEC thought, oh, this pilot is going suicidal, so he cut off the engines. Now, did he, like Terminator movie, got one hand out and then moved the switches back, and then he got this hand back into like Terminator 2, and so this Mr. Idiot TikToker is trying to imply that. So this whole show was really nice, and apart from this TikToker, she's embarrassing everyone. I mean, I disown him. So he's not a pilot. Come on, trust me. He shouldn't be sitting as a passenger even, on the airplanes. So yeah. So the whole show, eventually these two panelists, they came up with very strong opinion about the back deployment, and that has been covered by a lot of people. And initially, Mr. TikToker was just, whenever they put up a point, he just like, I mean, because in one of the points, Mr. Kishore Chinta told him that this could happen. The fuel supply could be cut off without the switches position, without manually doing the switches, and Mr. TikToker said, oh no, these are the switches that are directly attached to the valves, and that's where they turn on the valves. And in the counter question, then Mr. Kishore Chinta and Ed Pierson, both of them, they asked him, no sir, refresh your knowledge. And that's where he said that I'm not an expert, and Pierson Morgan tried to make TikToker an expert, and that's where Ed Pierson, he came up with his
okay, Ed, do you want to say something?
Yeah, those switches are not just mechanical. If it was strictly mechanical, it would be a connection between the switch and the actual valve itself. There's electrical wiring. There's things that go from that switch all the way out to the airplane. I mean, and I'm not an expert on all this, but you just it's assume that is a purely mechanical thing is not accurate.
If you don't mind challenging you there, I mean, you keep saying I'm not an expert. I mean, Captain Steve is an expert. He's done a lot of flying. He is emphatic that there is no other way this could have happened. If you're not expert in this, how can you be equally emphatic? It is possible.
Well, as I said, we have to look at all the systems of the airplane, right? Not just that little switch. I worked in a factory. I saw how these airplanes are manufactured. I saw employees that were building these planes, and I reported this in the MAX, that we had electrical issues in the factory. We had issues with testing of our electrical wiring interconnect system. We had issues in the factory with systems not working properly. This is not that unusual. These things can happen, as the other captain mentioned. He mentioned he had a background in electronics, and so do I in the military. And these switches are not purely mechanical. If they were purely mechanical, there would be a physical connection between that switch and whatever that end object is. And so what we need to do is we need to go through the signal flow, the detailed signal flow. And these, again, I'm saying I'm not an expert because I value the fact that there's areas of expertise that, say, Captain Steve has, but there's areas of expertise that other people with other disciplines have. So electronic technicians, electrical engineers, systems engineers, those individuals need to be involved in this. And that's what I mean when I say I'm not an expert.
Okay, I mean, Captain Chinta, it seems to me
where he said that he has been working directly with the Boeing people. He has been seeing how these engines and these softwares are made compatible with each other. He has observed these things with his own eyes. So he's saying that he has not done that, but he has seen that. So he's not an expert in saying that how is it done, but he is an observer, much better observer than this idiot who brings Airbus's fuel switches to show that they are Boeing 787 switches. So yeah, that was a good one, by the way, for Ed Pierson. So in the end, eventually, what does Mr. TikToker say? He agreed. In the end, he said, these fuel control switches, there is a DC relay system between the valves. And so
why did you cut off? And the other pilot replied he hadn't done so. So we know that conversation happened.
Absolutely. We do not know who said what. We do not know. We are assuming.
You seem completely certain that this could only be done by a human, but the other two are suggesting that is not the case and that it can be caused by other ways. Are you 100%? Are you 99.9? How would you categorize your certainty here?
Well, you always have to leave a little bit of uncertainty for anything, right? Are we 100% on anything? But I don't disagree with Ed that there are other systems on the Boeing aircraft that operate in the way that he described. It's just not the fuel control switches. When I say they're a mechanical switch, they operate a relay which operates the valves. They're not directly connected to the valves, all right? But a relay is a 14-volt DC thing that is either open or closed based on the position of the fuel control valve or switch where it's placed. So in order to believe that somehow they transitioned on their own, you have to believe that they come out of the detent, they've somehow vibrated or some other reason, and both of them did it.
And then Mr. Kishore Chinta literally put his hands on his head. He said, so what were we saying since the beginning? That these DC, these relay systems, they can be electronically given command to shut off the fuel valves. And that was the whole point. Initially he denied, but in the end he said the same thing which those two experts were saying. So anyhow, he's just, because he has also been sued by the Indian Pilot Association and again, Mr. Kishore Chinta clearly told him that no, you are not supposed to work. You are not supposed to give any assumptions. You're not supposed to come out with any kind of thing that pilots are mentally ill. I mean, he himself is mentally ill. The one who says that flaps were up, so engine went off, and then the gears, blah blah. Forget about it. So anyhow, the link is in the description box below. So watch the video and see for yourself. That was my 2 cents telling about that these two professionals kicked the ass of Mr. Captain Steve, the TikToker. So see you next time. Allah Hafiz.